This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
Ben Settle, compulsively punchable.
He's the kind of guy who you'd probably just punch on the arm really hard if you ever met him.
Worshipped by feminists.
He pokes fun at feminism and women, just joking around, his whole sandwich making thing.
Mildly inspiring.
Yes, I recommend the Ben Settle Show, and anybody who isn't on it, that's their own loss.
Somewhat authentic.
Ben is a very distinct personality. There's no fluff. I can't stand fluff.
Syrupy sweet.
Tells it like it is, and sometimes may not be the most polite manner, shall we say.
Kind of useful.
So I have spent tens of thousands of dollars on coaching and masterminds, and I've learned more from Ben Settle's podcast than from any of that.
Semi-intelligent.
Ben sounds like a crazy guy at times, but he's one of the smartest individuals in marketing I've ever met.
Mostly forgettable.
He's always in the forefront of my mind.
The BenSettle.com podcast begins now.
This is Ben Settle, BenSettle.com podcast. And
are you sure?
So we talk. I had to make. Well, I still have this weird I still want to say Ben Settle show. I don't know why. I have no idea.
Good grief! 6 months in,
we have moved past the mark where this should be an issue, but because it's been like a year.
No, you know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. You're doing some NLP stuff right here. Like, God, I really wish I knew what the Ben Settle show was. Where can I find it?
I'm not going to verify that or deny it. I'm going to let the rationalization hamsters of the audience figure that out for themselves. And I'm just going to focus on talking about flowery hands.
Okay.
So last week we talked about my sticky hands and Wing Chun and all that. So this time there's another, now this isn't a Wing Chun thing necessarily, but in Kung Fu, there is this term that gets thrown around that kind of mocks certain people called flowery hands. So think of pretty much everything you see in Hollywood martial arts as flowery hands. It's like these big movements. They're moving their arms and their hands all over the place. And these, they're slinking around and their legs are all in these weird contorted positions. And it looks all cool. It looks all flashy and sexy and all that. But really, in reality, it just gets their butts kicked because they have no center of gravity. They're way out of balance. They don't have their weight distributed correctly. There's just so many ways. They're just not in a very powerful stance when they're doing that. But it looks cool. Right? It looks sexy. Like, oh wow, look at but the masters they call that flowery hands because it's just which I always got a kick out of. And one other person added embroidered fingers to it.
Oh, nice.
So to further mock it. But that's what it is. I mean, that's when you see all that kind of stuff. And some styles are just flowery hands prone and some aren't. Wing Chun has absolutely no flowery hands to it whatsoever. There's nothing sexy about it. That's what throws everything. That's probably why I like it so much because it's so much like the way I mark it. It's very much a dull, unpolished object.
I like the rusty nail. You need a tetanus shot.
The rusty nail. Yeah, you need after you get my rusty nail, you're going to need a tetanus shot from all that horse shit that didn't bother anything. But I have noticed, Jonathan, as you have no doubt noticed, that flowery hands applies to the email marketing especially, but the business world as a whole. I mean, there's a lot of flowery hands things where, things look cool and sexy and interesting and all that, but they just don't work, or they don't work as well as doing something really basic. So you mentioned NLP earlier. There are people who swear by using NLP in their marketing and all that. I don't know much about it. It's never interested me in the slightest. I think I read a little bit about it in a Tony Robbins book in 1998 called Personal Power. That's the only exposure I have to NLP. I don't remember much about it. It didn't do much for me. Yet there are people who accuse me, not in a bad way, but they say, hey, that was some cool NLP you just using that email. I don't even know what NLP is, yet somehow I'm using it. But I have seen people who claim to be NLP experts and copywriters, and I'll look at their ads because I'm like, okay, I want to see what they're doing, right? I just out of professional curiosity, maybe there's something here I can use. I don't know. So I'll look at their ads, and it's so blatantly manipulative, and they're trying to get you in a trance. You can tell by the way they're writing their paragraph, repeating the same things 8 times straight. And, there is a place for that in some ways, but not the way they're doing it. And not my opinion, at least. Breakthrough Advertising actually talks about doing stuff like that, but there's very much a principle behind it. It's not tactical like the NLP guys I've seen. Now, I say that, but there are certain copywriters out there who I respect immensely who claim to be using NLP, and, I can't even tell what they're doing. So they're probably doing it the right way. So this isn't like anti-NLP, but the way NLP people tend to use it in copywriting that I've seen is very flowery hands. So here's another flowery hands example, Jonathan. These, God, I get tired of hearing this term, nurture sequences.
Oh boy.
Nurture, like they just cannot bring themselves to sell. It boggles my mind. They're so afraid of selling. I need to nurture them a little bit along, and I don't want to scare them away because they're little timid rabbits. Can't I got to come up real close with the cracker, and try to feed them, or they'll run away if I come up too close. That's what I envision when I hear about like nurture sequence. Somebody will say, Ben, they're necessary for this and that, and I will say no, they're not. Because I just have never seen a case where you can't just sell. Okay. I just have never seen it. So for example, people will sell an ebook to someone. They want to nurture them. This is one example of a nurture. Maybe there's many, Jonathan. I honestly have lost track of some of these trendy terms that I hear in the marketing world, and this is just one of many of them, the nurture sequence and the ascension and all. I don't even know what half this crap means anymore. It just sounds to me like they're all trying to avoid doing what they need to do. So, and which is selling. So when you don't nurture someone along, you give them the next step to take. That's the way I look at it, at least. Give them the next step, which is buying something else. Like in the offline world, they don't sit there and nurture people with 10 letters after they buy something and then sell them something else. They send them an ad to buy something else related to the thing they just bought when they're at their hottest, when they're at their mindset where they're most likely to buy. And, these things just, I don't know. Obviously, this would be one of those things, Jonathan, where I'd start raising my voice to someone I'm teaching one-on-one, and they would start thinking I'm mad at them. And, the dog would get scared because I'm already like bothered by just the whole thought of these emails that don't sell. They go out of their way to not sell, thinking that they're being cool, thinking that they're being all sneaky and ninja and all that, when really they're just being, that's flowery hands. It's the equivalent of the kung fu guy out there making all these movements and everything, but he's not close enough to hit anybody. So the other guy just stands there and laughs at him. It's the same thing. While they're nurturing their customers, I'm selling to their customers. So maybe I should be happy about this, Jonathan. Maybe I should be glad that there's nurture sequences out there. I don't know. While you're nurturing, I'm selling. That's going to be, Jonathan, I think I had a Gary Vee moment there.
Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking, since I have a kid, I'm thinking like nursing, like sucking on a nipple, like nursing sequence.
Oh man, that would be a really good way to mock. All right, let's keep that in mind. That could be another. We'll be using that again. That's perfect. The nursing sequence, nurture sequence. I almost want to like stop the recording so I can write that down. We'll remember. So anyway, that's one kind of flowery hands. And by the way, people who use flowery hands in combat can still win a fight. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying these things won't work. I'm not saying that just because you don't sell that you can't sell. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying compared to the person who's just going to come up and hit you, okay, instead of doing a bunch of flowery hands, you're at a disadvantage, whether you're talking email or anything else. Then another way that a flowery hands email technique, not a principle, but a technique, is where they strategically quote, and I am doing air quotes as I say this, by the way, incubate prospects who get on a list.
Ooh.
Right? And maybe this is the same as the nurture sequence. I don't freaking know anymore, Jonathan. It's all become so trendy. These things are so freaking trendy. So when I was working in the golf niche, and this was probably circa 2009 or 2010, I was putting together the email sequence, and one of the partners in the business was, and the same guy, the guy was very smart at traffic and all that, very smart technically, but he wasn't really all that smart when it came to selling. Like, for example, we had a very well responsive sales letter up, and he's like, we need to take the sales letter down because we don't want the site to look like we're selling anything.
What?
Jonathan, I shit you not. I know it sounds like a joke almost, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This guy literally said that. We need to take it down because we don't want to make it look like we're selling anything. And me and then the other partner, and by the way, both those guys, to me, I don't like either one of them. I think they're not the kind of people I would want to ever do business with again. And apparently a lot of people were burned by these people. I don't know. Specifically, I know I had my issues with them. But the other guy was like, yeah, we need to put that sales letter back up, and then they did, and then sales went back up. It's like, no kidding. Really? You have a sale. Like, this is the mindset of the fluffpreneur. This is the mindset of the flowery hands. And so this guy who wanted to take the sales letter down, we were talking about emails too. And he's like, we need to incubate these. We can't sell them right away. We need to incubate them. And he, I forget the internet marketing guru he mentioned, who said this. I can't remember who it was, but he kept quoting this like guru guy. And I'm like, well, that's fine that it works for him, but this isn't, I mean, why are you trying to incubate? They want to buy something. And a golf especially. I mean, these guys want to buy something. They're not looking, these guys are hot to buy in that market. And really any market this applies to, but especially golf. You don't sit there and incubate them. You give them what they want. They want to get better. They want to hit the ball farther. They want to putt better. All the things they wanted. But no, they wanted to incubate, which makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to me at all. And I don't know. Somebody sent me the sequence that Evernote, I guess, uses. They call it their onboarding process.
Yeah.
Right. Now, obviously, Evernote makes a lot more money than El Bembo. So, but you could say the same about Coca-Cola too, right? It's like we're talking about the average person. I never saw a bigger nerdgasm than people had over their onboarding process, which was like 17 emails, Jonathan, before they made an offer. 17. I counted it up. 17.
Really?
Now, and it was all this flowery hand stuff. Yes. And maybe they've changed it since then. This was a while back. It was like a year ago. But let's just forget I said Evernote. It could be any company. A lot of companies do this. And it just makes no sense, especially for the small independent businesses like ours. You don't do the flowery hand. You don't need to send 17 freaking emails before you sell something. Sell on the very first day. I don't know why anyone doesn't do this, Jonathan, but it's all flowery hands to me. 17 emails is flowery hands. That is like the epitome of flowery. 17 emails that don't sell anything is the epitome of flowery hands. Am I saying it doesn't work? No, obviously it does if they're a multi-million-dollar business. Okay, it's not like they're not going to make sales. But unless you have that kind of war chest going for you here, think hard before you follow these fluffers. Ryan Stewman calls he calls them fluffers. I call them fluffers. He calls them fluffers. I think his term is much better, actually. Fluffers. And so is it. Anyway, that's another example. Another example. Now, what I'm about to say, Jonathan, is going to upset some certain fanboys and fangirls of a certain guru, okay? And I need to be very clear about something. What I'm about to say, I have nothing against this guy. I'm not saying he's very successful. Okay, I think he's on track to be like a billionaire and all that. So, okay, so this isn't, people think I'm just he's giving him a heart. No, I'm just saying for us, for the average person, do the opposite of what this guy does. And that would be Gary Vee's jab, 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 right hook principle applied to emails. Have you heard about that, Jonathan? This jab, 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 right hook.
Yes,
thing
I have.
You give like three value emails and then sell something.
Yeah.
And I gotta say something now. I don't know if this is true personally or not because I'm not a boxer. I don't know boxing. But someone who actually is a boxer that I know said that doesn't even make sense. You don't do 3 jabs and a right hook. That doesn't even, I guess in the boxing world, it makes no sense. Now, I'm telling you this from hearsay, so take it for our viewers. Maybe somebody will say that's correct. I just found that very interesting when I heard about that. But look, if you want to do a no offer, and then make an offer, email sequence or whatever, be my guest. I'm not here to wipe your nose and tell you how you have to do things. You do it however you want. Okay. If that's how you want to do it. I'm not saying it won't work. You'll still get sales doing that if you have a good offer. But it's in my way of thinking, Jonathan, it's an incredibly selfish way of doing email. It really is. And here's why I say that. If somebody is on your list because they have a problem that needs to be solved, that's why they got on your list. By you not at least letting them know something exists that can help them, it's so selfish because they need help from you. That's why they're on your list. And I don't care if it's a serious health problem or something that's not even that big of a deal. It's a big deal to them if they got on your list, whatever the problem is, whatever the industry is, whatever the product is. And, I like to use the urinary tract infection example, which I'm sure I've told before on this show, Jonathan, probably so many times everybody's tired of hearing it, but I'm going to say it again anyway. Imagine you have a terrible burning razor blade like urinary tract infection where it feels like you're pissing razor blades and you're in miserable pain. And you go to the doctor and the doctor writes you a prescription and you go to the pharmacy. But the pharmacist says, oh, I can't sell you anything today. This is just about this is just about value today. I'm not going to sell you anything. I don't want you to think I'm just a salesman. But you need that product. That's a selfish thing. It makes no sense to me. So if somebody wants to do jab, 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 right hook, or whatever it is, go ahead. I don't care. Okay. And I'm not saying it won't make you sale. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that I would prefer people take what the great John Carlton once said, which he was quoting some grizzled old salesman who told him, quit being fancy and just sell the damn thing. To me, that is wisdom. That is wisdom. It's so much more simple than trying to come up with all these flowery hands, jabs, and let me, do all this flowery hand stuff. Just sell it. Just put an offer in the email. All right. It's not that big of a deal. Another example of flowery hands, Jonathan, is these, and I've talked about these before, but that does not prevent me from talking about it again. The goodwill email. Jonathan, I'm going to send you an email with no sales pitch in it whatsoever. It's I just want goodwill from you. I'm not trying to sell anything. I want to show you that I'm a nice person and I'm not trying to be salesy and I'm not just trying to squeeze profits out of your life. Which all that does is very selfish. For the same reasons I just mentioned above. It's very selfish to send a goodwill email. Plus, it does you no good. It does your business no good. It does your employees no good if you're having to make a payroll. It just doesn't make sense. A goodwill email, Jonathan, to me is an email that sells a product that somebody really needs and can use, and they use the product, and that's how they get goodwill out of it. If you're getting testimonials by your emails and not your products, you're probably not doing it right, which that could be an email player's rule. Now I think about it, Jonathan. Here's another one. Letting prospects tell you how often to mail them. So, there's a very well-known marketer who espouses this and does this. I don't know if he teaches it, but I know he does it because everybody's always asking me about it, where you get on his list and he asks you, how often would you like to hear from me? Daily or weekly or monthly, whatever it is, yearly. I don't know, Jonathan. This goes back to that email players rules thing where I was talking about if you let your customers steer your ship, they're going to run it up on the rocks. I know for a fact, okay, and I'm not naming names for a reason because I don't see the point in it, and this person is so much more successful than I'll probably ever be. It would just be kind of tacky if I did, but it doesn't mean that they can't use a little of the medicine, Jonathan. Now, I know for a fact, because I know the affiliate man, I know someone who worked for this guy, okay? I know for a fact that this person was struggling, often struggles around the Christmas holidays with sales, to pay his staff and all that. And he's always really touchy about selling too much and all that. But when they actually sell, they make lots of money and everybody has a happy Christmas. So that, you take that information for what it is, but this is what Flowery Hands does. The Flowery Hands does not, it's just holding you back. Okay. Learn how to punch and strike and just step in and do it. Don't sit there and flowery hands around. It doesn't impress anybody except the guru fanboy types. They get impressed by flowery hands, but people with actual mouths to feed and all that, it doesn't impress them for very long when they realize it's not working for them. Jonathan, I'd say a lot of my email player subscribers are people who have tried all this other stuff and they're just this stuff doesn't work. I need something that actually works. Yeah. And I think I really do. I think I get the people who are burned out on all this flowery hand stuff. I really do. I think they're tired of moving their hands around in their bodies and getting exhausted when they could just not expend all this energy and hit much harder and get in and out much faster. And then finally, we've talked about tactics versus principles versus tactics. I believe that when someone comes in with tactics, whatever you're doing, if you're focused on tactics and not the principles behind those tactics, it's all flowery hands. There's nothing to take copywriting, for example. If somebody just comes out throwing tactics out there, I'm going to use this NLP. I'm going to open this loop, whatever the hell they're doing, and not understanding the principle behind, creating a good offer and knowing your market and all this stuff that's not sexy. It's just flowery hands. And it sounds good in the warrior form and all that, but in the real life, it's just, these are flowery hands. Sounds good from the stage when it's being taught, but it's just flowery hands. So if you don't want to have flowery hands, just don't do the stuff I talked about in here, and there will be peace across the land. And Jonathan, that's all I got for today. I have no idea what will be next time. It'll be a surprise, and that's all I got.
All right. Another BenSettle.com podcast is in the can. We'll be back with you next time.
You've been listening to the BenSettle.com podcast. To get your hands on a free issue of Ben Settle's prestigious $97 per month email players newsletter, simply go to www.bensettle.com.
This is the podcastfactory.com.